In this tutorial, we'll be learning how to create a banking app prototype in Figma, which will have cards that can switch around, we'll have transactions which will allow you to view more and view less, as well as sticky menus and sticky headers. I'll be sure to link all of the assets I use on the Figma file as well into the description of the video, just in case you need a little bit of help. First of all, open up Figma and go onto your new design file. We're just going to go to the top and rename that to mobile banking application. So now to create our first frame, which is going to be the main banking screen, we need to press F, move over to the right, go into phone and just go with iPhone 13 and 14. And then the frame should appear in the middle of your screen. Rename this to screen 1 for now. We're going to begin by creating a wireframe of the application, which is going to consist of a header, the card section, transaction section, and a navigation section on the bottom. So first of all, click on your frame, screen 1, go over to the right and click layout grid. We want to click on the little layout grid settings section here, change it to columns, and start with 8 to begin with, just for this project, and just change the opacity to 5% for now. You can change the colour to whatever you like here. Red's always good. I'm going to go with a sort of grey. So rather than adding rectangles in and shapes like you would normally expect to do in any other design program, we're going to be designing in frames. So you want to press F again, and inside just create your first section. Want this roughly to be about 60 pixels in height, and you want it to reach the borders, leaving a nice padding on the edge. Just add a filter to that, which will be a slightly light grey. Add a little bit of a border radius on just to get a smoother look. So this will be our header. So on the left hand side, just rename this to header. This is where our user's going to go, and maybe like help options and settings, and maybe even a hamburger menu, depending on how this application goes. We want to just duplicate this frame you've made, pull this down, and just rename this to card section. We want this to be roughly 180 pixels tall, and make sure it's the same width as the frame above. Now that we've got two frames in the screen, highlight them both, move over to the right and click Auto Layout. We can add spacing between objects here. We can also if we set these here to fill container, then we can also adjust the padding to the left and right, and the same again on the top, but we don't need to do that just yet. Next, duplicate the card section you created and go to the left and rename this transactions section. Now I'm going to pull this down to just 320 to get an idea of the actual height of it. I'm going to pull my padding into about 10. I'm just making this 400 instead, just to add a bit more height to it. But now we're going to create a new frame entirely, and that's going to stretch across the bottom section. We're going to make this a little bit darker, just so we can differentiate it from the screen items. This is going to be our nav menu. Now we've got the basic layout of the app, we're going to move on to designing the separate components to make this work dynamically. So rather than having to create a million different screens to show animations for each event, we split these frames out into individual components and build prototypes from them, allowing us to create more dynamic prototypes and add a bit more realism to the app. Right, so now we've got the screen items prepared, we're going to pull out the header section, and we're just going to swing this over to the left. And we're going to zoom in onto it. So we're going to want, for the header section, let's just go with a basic user image, user name, and maybe a help button. Let's just create a circle first of all, inside the header. We want that to just kind of sit there for now. I want that to be about 40. We're going to add some text, which is going to be a name, so just put your name. Just adjust your settings until you've got what you're happy with. And when you're satisfied with your circle and your text, just click on both of those, go to Auto Layout, press the plus button, and then we've got, this creates its own frame. So we're going to do that with user. Just rename that to user details. double click into the frame, just hold Alt over the circle, drag that to the right, shrink that down to about 16 pixels, center it. And then now this is going to be our help section, so I'm just going to add a question mark for the time being here. I'm going to flatten this, rather it be an icon. Allow it to be centered, group them, label that help button. Just highlight both of those, auto layout. Now on your spacing, we want to just select whatever it is at the minute, delete that and press enter to make auto. You can also drop down. We're going to pull this all the way to the right and all the way to the left. And then with your padding, just say, let's add 20 padding for now, or let's go to 15. 15 padding in the center. We want to also turn this now into an auto layout. And there we go. Turn the actual header into an auto layout. Let's just add another, let's do 10 by 10. So space is 10 there, that's 10. Or even, sorry, 0. And then we'll enter it, go into your internal frame. So call that header inner. So header's the main wrap, and the header inner is the name and the question mark group. And just add a maybe 10 height, so you got 15 by 10. And now that we've got this, we create a component. So click on the header, move to the top, and click on create component. We can now go over to our assets. We'll have the component here, drag this in, delete the original header, and now you'll notice any changes I make here will also appear over here. So we go ants at. But for now, I'm just going to say hello ant. Now we've got the header component set up. Let's move on to the cards, which is going to be a little bit more fun. So let's just move header up here, and let's just create sections of these. So if we go over to the region tools, drop down, go into section, and we'll just create a little box here, and this will be headers. Or just, sorry, let's just call it header, because we might make more variations of it. But for now, it's just the one. So header. So same again with the card section, hold Alt, Option or Alt, drag it out. Change this to card 1. So for card 1, we're going to want to add the padding of maybe, let's do 16 padding for now. We obviously adjust this later. We're just going to write some text in capitals. So Bank of Figma. I'm going to make this about 18. Just position this wherever you like. Hold Alt, drag it to the right, and set this text align to right. We're going to put the balance of the bank account here. So we're going to 123400. We'll make it a bit more realistic with 56. I'm going to increase this by 4, so 24, and I'm going to make that bold. Adjust this a little bit here. Hold the 2 there. Auto layout those, and you want to set the position of the auto layout at the top, just so it lays nicely. Duplicate the. You can duplicate either. Let's duplicate the Bank of Figma. Hold Command and plus, and then click on the balance. Auto layout down, and just change it back to like 5. Align that to the right, and shrink this down to about 10. That's just going to say balance. If you click on the balance and just press 7 to 5, you'll quickly be able to change the opacity to 75, or you can just do it over in the section to the right. But I'm actually going to make that 50, so I'm going to press 5. Next, we're going to add some buttons in here. Let's just duplicate this here, pull this down, and we're going to change it. Write some text saying add funds. Just going to use some basic. We're going to use some basic icons for now. So we're just going to go over to the top, the plugins, and find feather icons. We're just going to do a plus sign. So let's maybe use this one here. Move that over there for now. going to group the plus button. We're going to pull it in here. Shrink it down. And we want the thickness of this icon here to match the width of the font we're using. So I'd say that's probably about 1 pixel. Yeah, perfect. Yep. And we're going to highlight both of those, go to auto layout and create a new auto layout. Make sure it's centered to the left and maybe a width distance of 5. Now on this one, we're going to add a fill and just make it black with an opacity of 15. 5 spacing, change your padding to 5 by 10. And just because we're using an icon to make it look a bit more centered, pull the left padding down to 5 and then pull this down here to 7.5 on the right. And just increase the border radius to 100. So again, let's just pull this over and this will be transfer funds. So just go on further icons and see if there's anything related to transfer. Let's just go with an arrow for now. There we go, that's perfect. So same again with these icons. Let's just move these out of its frame so it's on its own. Group the icon, pull it in, and we're going to make sure that's 1 to match with this here. We might need to add this into a circle. So what I've done right now is create a circle around. I'm going to shrink this plus here. So then we've got kind of matching circled icons. And let's change that back to 5. And then we've got a transfer funds button as well. Just see how that crosses here. It's 5.2. So we're going to make sure this arrow here is uniform in 5.2 as well. Hello, it's editing on here. I've realised where it says add funds, it's lowercase, and when I've put transfer funds, the F in funds is uppercase. I never do this. I always make sure your type is the same. So if you're using sentence case, use sentence case. If you're using capitalizations, then use capitalizations. If you're using uppercase, always use uppercase, but never mix the two. And that's the mistake I made, but ignore it while you can for the video because it is there for the entire way. Alright, so I've got a pretty basic looking card wireframe here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add a nice gradient to it. I think this one is the one. I'm pulling the opacity up of the balance here just to make it a bit more friendly in terms of contrast with the background. We've got the Bank of Figma card made, so what we're actually going to do now is we're going to duplicate this. So we're going to hold Alt and we're going to pull this to the right to duplicate it, and this is going to be card 2. It should already be renamed, provided you've named the first one card 1. Change this to savings account. And we're just going to add a little bit more money to this, so we'll be add funds, transfer funds again. So now we've got our 2 individual cards. We want to pull these. We can either have them so it's a vertical swap, or we can have it so they slide horizontally. First of all, let's just create a component of each of these. So that's a component. Click on the card 2. That's a component. Let's pull our card section out again because we're going to need this. So let's just put this right here. Let's put it as above actually because it's our container. Just turn this into a component. Just move the cards over to the left so we've actually got the components of the cards so we can always go back and edit them. Now we want to pull out a variation of it, so let's pull these 2 cards out here, go on to design, auto layout, and change it to -160, and just adjust your padding until you can see just the top of the number. So let's actually just pull these up on here a tiny bit. There we go. So this. You can also, if you wanted to, just slightly blur out the background layer to add 3D depth, but I'm not going to do that. Let's return this, let's call this cards, and turn it into a component, add a new variant, and just click on the back one, press Command and Command and plus on the first one to bring the main bank account to the front. And we're going to want to change this on tap. So just drag. If you want to open this one, make sure you've double clicked on only the blue card here. Go down, on tap, gentle animation, 800 milliseconds should do it. Same again for this one here, pull that up, and then that should change there. So now, if we just delete this and move cards in instead. So now we've got cards. If we go back onto our prototype, you'll notice that we can now swap between the two of these. I'm just going to make some slight adjustments just to my color. So I'm going to go for an OE, 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 which should have a nice black background. I'm going to change my colors to white for now. And I'm going to change the background. So for now, I'm just going to remove my layout grid just because I don't really need it right now, just for this tutorial. I'm going to add 14 border radius to these, and what I'm going to do is just add a slight gradient just to give some life to the design. Go over the top with your gradient. You want it to be very subtle. A stroke as well. The stroke's going to be inner. I'm going to make it white but a slight gradient just so it's not too harsh. And it, again, just adds a bit of depth to what we're doing here. You can pull the opacity of the main one down a bit if you like. What I've done, just for a bit more realism, is I've added the top bar of the iPhone in just because it's the device we're using. So now if we go to the preview, we've kind of got the cards working. We're going to go back to the mobile application. I'm going to start creating the actual transactions. So since we've already styled this just here, let's pull this out using Alt and drag and create a ellipse, zoom in, circle. This is going to be our indicator of like if it's a rent payment, it'll be R, for instance, or it'll have an icon or however you want it to look. For now, I'm just going to use text, which is going to be R for rent. It's going to center that in the middle, make it roughly 18 in size. I'm just going to change the color to a light blue for now. So we're going to have the title, which is going to be left aligned, rent payment, and then the below it, just a regular, let's shrink it down. Let's do a size 10 font with 50 opacity, and this is going to be either the transaction information or it's going to be the date that maybe got taken out. But for now, we're going to have it just as like a monthly, a direct debit, to show that this payment comes out monthly. Turn those both into an auto layout and just set a padding of 5. Then group the circle to the left with the text inside it by Command and G. Click both of those and create an auto layout again. Align to the left and padding of 5. No, let's go back to 10 actually, the spacing's quite nice. For the transaction section, we want to create an auto layout here. And we just kind of want it to pull out a little bit more. So then it's always going to stay flush with how many objects are in the container. Duplicate the rent payment, pull that to the out. For now it will display down, but we want to group them again. Auto layout, create an auto layout, align it to make sure it's a horizontal layout and align to the center. And just set to fill container and an auto layout, auto spacing between the two. And it's going to be the amount. So the amount that's going out is 1,100. Let's increase the size of this to make it more legible. Make that 7.5, just allow a bit more spacing, and I'm going to do 7.5 here as well. Turn this into a component, and we can just duplicate the objects inside here. So this component is always going to be set to fill section now. So if we go over to our assets, and we'll have, if we just move into local components, we'll find this here. So we can insert the instance and just drag this into here. So I'm just going to copy and paste it in. I'm going to delete this. set it to fill container, and because it's already auto layout in here, it will fit to whatever size you want to make it. It's going to add a little bit of gap between these, and we get 15, and that will be our payment section. Just grab the name from here and just pull it down in the middle, and this will be transactions. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it 18. Got cards, so we've got our transactions here, and just to make these a little bit cleaner here, we're just going to take that transactions text again and just copy it into our transaction section, and we want to put a date. So today's 10th of Jan, and then we'll duplicate that again. That could be our payments for that date, and then this can be Tuesday, the 9th of Jan. Then just duplicate that again, pull that to the bottom, and set that to fill container, just so it's in the center, and we're going to want to do view more. So now we've got the section that should be updated in it here as well. Perfect. So now this is here, we'll create a variant of it, and we're going to extend this now. So we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to pull it all the way to the bottom. I just check that to June 8th, and just set that to hug. Make sure this is actually visible. And for now, there will be more transactions, but just for this prototype, we're going to review less. This is just an example of how the app would work. Go to prototyping tools again, and we want to go on this view more, and on tap, drag it down to the web, drag it down, on tap, set it to 800 milliseconds, and smart animate, same again here with view less, up, on tap, 800 milliseconds, and now that should work like so. Let's just change this to an auto layout. So just remember the width is 390, we want auto layout, but we want this to be fixed at 390, spaced to the top. And we want to make sure it's just hugged. Hugging the contents there, with padding to the right. This here can go at the bottom, but go on prototype, interactions, and just for now, rather than scrolling with parent, so sticky. We want that to be sticky. As you can see, you've got kind of a basic version of it. So we're going in between the cards. We've got our payments, we can view less, or we can view more. You can increase the click area of the view more just by increasing the height of the object that it sits in. We've got our payments here. You can feel free to design that however you like. Just for the video, I'm going to keep it as it is. And next, just create a menu. So I actually have a menu I've created previously, and I'm just going to bring this into here. Fill in the top and the bottom. Prototype, fixed, stay in place. Change the top of the iPhone bit to stay fixed, stay at top of page. And then just change this here to sticky again. But we want to make this just a bit longer, just to accommodate for the extra sizing of this here. So maybe not that tall, maybe about there. Pull that to the bottom. And although that looks a little bit long at the minute, when we go to prototyping, view more should just be fine. But let's make sure that sticks to the top because it's not doing. There we go. It's fixed to stay in place. So now we have a somewhat realistic looking prototype here, which we can swap between the cards. We can also view less on these here. To add a bit more realism to this, we could just duplicate the transactions again, pull that to the bottom, and just change this to savings account for now. We'll come back to this design in the future and create more with it, but this is kind of like a basic overview of what you can do with Figma's prototyping tools and creating dynamic components. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you've learned something from us as well. Bye bye.